It's that time of year again. Nothing like a shiny, brand new set release to get those creative Duel Commander deck building juices flowing. And Dominaria promises to be a doozy, especially after the lackluster Ixalan block that really didn't shake up the format much at all. In this video, I'm breaking down the top 8 Dominaria cards for Duel Commander. And I'm trying to be as objective as possible here and not give preference to my favorite cards, but you all know how that tends to go. Let's dive into it. Number 8 on the list is a workhorse beater that can hold her own either in the command zone or in the 99, Shauna Sisay's Legacy. There's not a lot of nuance to this card, just raw efficiency combined with a hint of resilience. The honest truth is, like it or not, aggro is a top performing archetype in Duel Commander right now. Shauna has the potential to carve out a niche as the premier go-wide commander to capitalize on the format's over-reliance of 1-for-1 removal. She can slip in under counterspells and dodge things like Jite counters and Maze of Ith, while you're happily casting Raise the Alarms and Spectral Processions. When you think of it, she's kind of the antithesis of Erebos, despite also being aggro-focused and in the exact same colors. Erebos is all about loading up on a single attacker, while Shauna is happier with company. Ultimately, Erebos trumps Shauna in terms of sheer power, but a token strategy could have legs in Duel with a theoretically good matchup against partner aggro, Tempo decks, and Zergo. I could also see her squeezing in a deck like Saskia that wants to beat down with a lot of big creatures fast. Do note that her first ability does not stop her from being the target of spells, only abilities, so she'll die to Fatal Push just like any other 2-drop. Coming in at number 7 is Jorah, Weatherlight Captain. Jorah opens up a wealth of deck building opportunities from the command zone. I could see Storm, Stacks, and Control builds all working well, supported by her massive card drawing potential. Unfortunately for us Duel players, we don't have access to the same busted artifact mana as our multiplayer compatriots, which makes Jorah a lot more difficult to abuse. Still, I think she could be competitive if you build and play her well, which means being smart about timing when you cast her and the suite of 0 and 1-drop artifacts that she goes so well with. There's a lot of tension here because you're going to have all these cheap artifacts you need to hold on to in the early game if you want to get value off them, but if Jorah dies, all of a sudden your welding jars and baubles aren't looking so hot. Her linear nature telegraphs a lot to your opponents who can fairly easily counter or kill her on sight, but her ceiling is so high that I for one will be trying to make her work. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Mondo combo with Words of Wind. If you have both of these cards out, you can cast a 0-drop artifact, pay 1 to replace your Jorah draw with a symmetrical bounce, bounce another 0-drop artifact, and then replay it again to repeat the cycle, forcing your opponent to bounce a permanent of their choice for each 1 mana you pay. Ideally, one of those 0-drop artifacts is a Mox, so you can bounce their entire board in one go, since Moxen are mana rocks that net you mana. The bar is pretty high for running a 6-drop in the command zone after the change to 20 life, but the power level on Muldrotha, the Gravetide, is so high that this thing just might have what it takes. Muldrotha just oozes value. If you can untap with him, you should have no trouble winning the game. And if it's not clear already, I think this guy lends himself best to being a build-around commander. There are 2 routes to go with Mr. Gravetide here: pure value or combo. Unlike competitive multiplayer, I think the best choice for Duel is value. There's no reason you can't tighten your control of the game sufficiently by repeatedly playing Wastelands and Shriekmaws out of your graveyard to grind your opponent down. When deck building, look for permanents that have great enters the battlefield abilities or sack themselves for value. With Sultai colors, you have ways to answer any type of card from your opponent. Creatures causing you problems? Nail them with a Chupacabra. Going against some tough artifacts? Blow them up repeatedly with Reclamation Sage. Planeswalkers got you down? Smoke them with Vampire Hexmage, and tie it all together with Birthing Pod. The great thing is that all these cards are good on their own anyway. The synergies are really incredible. If you can, it's best to play them on a turn when you haven't made your land drop yet, so you can get immediate value. Bonus points for that land being Wasteland. Here we are again with yet another gold card. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, is our number 5 card for Duel Commander. What I love most about this card is his ability to untap 2 lands so you can leave counter magic up on your opponent's turn. Outside of the original Garruk, this is a pretty unique ability for a Planeswalker. The rest of the card reads similarly to a lot of other Planeswalkers we've seen over the years: +1 for card draw, middle ability to deal with a threat, and a big, powerful ultimate. But Teferi does each of these better than a lot of other similar costed walkers. Both of his first 2 abilities allow him to protect himself either directly or indirectly. And though it will be rare to pull off, he has one of the better ultimates ever seen, especially if the game continues to go long. Overall, I really like him in a Drago shell, and I would say he's the best blue-white Planeswalker ever printed to date, not close. The challenge will be figuring out which commander can best make use of him given the lack of really strong Azorius generals. Although, he does seem like a natural fit in Brago to lock them out of drawing new cards very quickly. Duel Commander heavily rewards mana-efficient plays, so any one-drop that can make a big impact on the board immediately deserves consideration. That's why our fierce little friend, Dauntless Bodyguard, comes in at number 4. For Magic having been around over 25 years, there really aren't a lot of ways to protect a critical creature without holding mana up. For 1 mana, we're really only looking at the likes of Mother of Runes, Benevolent Bodyguard, and Vigilant Martyr if you want to get really janky. Once we go up to 2 mana, we have Selfless Spirit, by now a staple in many white decks. I think these types of cards are extremely valuable in Duel Commander and go out of my way to play them when it makes even the remotest amount of sense. Now, Dauntless Bodyguard isn't as good at protecting as the other cards I mentioned, since you have to cast them after your critical creature is already in play, and it can only protect a single dude. Your opponent can even kill your intended target in response to you casting this, which sucks, but the fact that it has 2 power means that it's much less of a dead card than the others in turn 1. If you're in the market for a 2-power 1-drop in your white beatdown deck anyway, you could do a lot worse than Dauntless Bodyguard. At that point, the extra ability is just gravy. Such commanders include Kithian, Thalia, Karlov, and Tymna. Our number 3 card is the lowly Gitu Lava Runner. You're going to know when you want this little guy in your deck. Are you into hyper-aggressive beatdown and running lots of instants and sorceries? If so, get him in there. I see him playing a role in 2 styles of decks in particular. Mono-red Zergo and a Delver-style blue-red tempo deck piloted by something like the new Adeliz the Cinder Wind. Both decks can easily turn on his buff and keep him attacking consistently. I really like that this card isn't an embarrassing top deck in the mid-game, which is all too common for 1-drops. On top of that, it shouldn't be too hard to cast this alongside another spell on turns 3 to 5 for a nice tempo boost. The most comparable card is probably Monastery Swiftspear. The Swiftspear has a higher ceiling, lower floor, and is a better card overall, but that doesn't mean you couldn't run both side by side. The Lava Runner can perform better in the late game when you run out of gas. Coming in at number 2 is Karn, Scion of Urza. The original Karn Planeswalker is an iconic card and staple in big mana decks, and I expect this new svelte, slimmed down version to be heavily played too. On the surface he's quite playable in any deck, being colorless and only 4 mana and all. However, once you realize that his -2 is useless without a lot of other artifacts, it's clear that it takes a somewhat specific deck to really make use of him. The problem is he can't protect himself, at least not without curving out an artifacts leading up to casting him. So he might just effectively draw you a card and gain you 6 life before biting the dust. But 6 loyalty is a lot, and most of the time your opponent won't have enough power to take him down immediately. At that point, they can also just ignore Karn because he doesn't really have an ultimate. It's definitely a unique card, but I think the closest comparison is Coercive Portal, a card that's near and dear to my heart. The advantage of Karn is that you get a card right away, but it's going to be the worst of your top 2 off the bat. Karn can't be blown up by artifact removal, but can be attacked and killed with burn. The final tiebreaker is the ability of Karn to spit out constructs, if that's something that matters to you. Do you know that the tokens are like Voice of Resurgence tokens, and that they keep growing even after the card that made them leaves play? Ultimately, this card is a great addition to mono-white, mono-red, and colorless decks that are starved for sources of card advantage. And to the surprise of absolutely no one, Mox Amber takes the crown for top Dominaria card for Duel Commander. Pretty much every Mox ever printed has been broken in this format. Chrome Mox and Mox Diamond both got the axe in 2017, leaving Mox Opal as the only legal Mox in the format, until now. Mox Amber slots into a lot more decks than Opal, which required a very high artifact count to be consistently online. Mox Amber only really requires 2 things to be a consideration for your Duel Commander deck. 1, your commander has a CMC of 3 or less, although 3 is pushing it. And 2, you have a lot of cheap spells, preferably 1 mana spells, that allow you to get value out of it even if your opponent kills your commander immediately. I also really like it alongside the 1 mana white protection spells like Emerge Unscathed, because you can use the mana immediately to protect your commander. You really don't want this in a deck with an expensive commander since it can't help you cast it, and it's unlikely you'll have enough other legendary creatures to keep it online. However, if your commander has some form of built-in resilience like Hexproof or Indestructible, it could still be okay. One other exception is Captain Sisay Paradox combo because it makes going off extremely easy in that deck. Stay tuned for a deck tech for Sisay soon. I wanted to wait on it because it really got a power boost with Dominaria. Realistically, the best decks for Mox Amber are the hyper-aggressive decks like Zergo, Kithian, and Karlov. So those are my picks for top 8 Dominaria cards for Duel Commander. This set is insane for Commander lovers of all kinds due to its legendary theme. I'm already excited to brew at least 4 brand new decks off the top of my head. I'm sure this list will be controversial, so tell me all the shit I got wrong in the comments below. And please subscribe if you haven't already to get that hot, fresh 1v1 Commander content you crave every week. Thanks for watching.